Well, few people have witnessed the evolution of sports nutrition from inside, quite like today's guest. Now, he's been there through the protein wars, the creatine panic, the supplement industry explosion, and now emerging science linking nutrition to brain health, aging, and longevity. While social media influencers still argue over the latest fad, he has spent decades looking for and what actually science says. Dr. Jose Antonio, welcome to the Crackin Backs Podcast.
Hey, thanks, Doc, for that introduction. I like the part where you said decades, which means I've been doing this a long time. And you know what? You know, I teach a sports nutrition course at Nova Southeastern University, and I always implore my students, you should take creatine monohydrate. It's good for you. And I tell them this is how I put it in perspective. I've been taking it since Bill Clinton was president. And they look at me like, is that supposed to mean something to us?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, you guys weren't alive. I know that, but just know that I've been doing it for a long time. So it is indeed true. Decades of experience, personal
Well,
experience.
at
And
least
that's
you
okay.
didn't
Spencer will
Good.
say Lincoln. So, I'm
Oh,
gonna-
I was gonna say at least we didn't say George Washington, man. That would have been scary.
yeah, going back to DW, that's a
Right.
while.
Well, I kind of switched it up because I was going to say you were a pioneer, but we already cleared that up as being.
When I hear, what's funny? When I hear the word pioneer, I think of Lewis and Clark, like walking from like Louisiana to like Oregon. I'm like, that's a pioneer.
Right.
Oh, this is going to be a fun show. All
yes,
right.
it is.
Doctor, let me ask you. First of all, how did this thing about nutrition start? Because I remember 40 years ago when I started practicing, medical doctors were often referring to the fact that, oh, if you have a balanced diet, you don't need vitamins, things like that. And I'm sure you remember that stuff. So
Yeah,
start us.
not just medical doctors, but dietitians. I mean, if you go back to, I did my undergrad in the 1980s, and I remember my first nutrition professor. Actually, I think my only nutrition professor back then. Um, she said protein is harmful to your kidneys if you eat too much, and that really got me going. I'm thinking, that's kind of interesting. This is a professor at a university telling me this. And, as an undergrad, let's face it, undergrad students, we're not really that smart, but I'm smart enough to know that I've watched my uncle down gobs of protein, and he was a bodybuilder then. I'm like, he sure is healthy. So I don't see anything going on there. So the idea, it's interesting. Nutrition is a field that everyone has an opinion on. Why? Because everyone eats. So they figure, well, I eat, therefore I am an expert. But I think where most of the misinformation came from initially going back, decades, is from physicians and dietitians, which is kind of ironic because most people, for instance, most people don't know a scientist, so they wouldn't know how to ask. Most people really don't know dietitians, but they know their physician. So the physician is the one who gives them advice about whether or not vitamins are a waste of time, whether too much protein is bad for you. So really going back then, it seemed that the default position of all of these health professionals was that you don't need it and it could be bad for you. That seemed to be the default position, despite the fact that they had no evidence for this. It was sort of like, it's bad. I'm like, well, if it's bad, what's the evidence? You could at least say, okay, we don't have much evidence. That would be intellectually honest, but instead, that stuff's bad. So I remember in grad school in the 1980s, it was one of the first times that there was a scientist who talked about, you know what? If you do more exercise, you probably need more protein. And when you think about it, in the 1980s, that was actually quite controversial. And so even back then, even with the emerging science of sports nutrition, people were still generally very skeptical of supplements and especially protein in general. And I think this is why. When you look at the supplement category, people originally think, okay, where does this category originate from? What athletes are doing it? And it always goes back to bodybuilding because they're typically the pioneers. If you want to call them athletes, I have friends who are bodybuilders who are like, no, we're not athletes. We just lift to look pretty. I don't know if you call that athletic, but they were they were quite cognizant that nutrition played a role in increasing muscle mass, right? So I think people who are outside of the bodybuilding realm or even the fitness world have always been skeptical of what bodybuilders do, even though they're really the first group to experiment with a lot of this stuff. And so, I mean, if you fast forward to creatine, why were people so skeptical of creatine? Well, because bodybuilders use it, and of course, if bodybuilders use it, it can't really work because they're all on the juice, yada yada yada, and so there's this constant skepticism. And here's what's crazy: fast forward to 2026, I think we now have 600, maybe 700 studies on creatine alone, and there are still people who are skeptical. And it's like, how much evidence do you really need? I mean, to me, as a scientist, I'll be honest, as a scientist, it's gotten to the point where I don't really need to see another study showing creatine increases lean mass. I don't. It works. I don't need to see it. However, it would be nice to see studies on the effects of creatine on cognition and things like that. That's where a lot of research is going. So I guess if you look at the historically, because supplements in general came from the bodybuilding world, I think that's where most people seem to have their skepticism in terms of, does it work and is it safe?
It's funny because I remember back in the day in the 80s that we as, bodybuilders needed to take desiccated liver pet tablets. Do you remember
I
that?
remember those. Oh my God. Those
And that was
smell.
it. And, oh, terrible. I mean, if you burped it up, you had to turn your head so you didn't blow away the person next to you.
My God. Here's a funny, I remember my uncle, he was who I learned. He was actually a bodybuilder, but he was actually my first karate instructor. That's why, I remember how my uncle trained. So he had these, you remember the Joe Weider amino acid tablets? Oh my God. Yeah. He'd be working out in our garage and I'd open it up. I'm like, God, this stuff stinks. And he said what everyone said at the time. He's like, it tastes crappy. That means it works. I'm like, ugh.
That's right.
Like, no, this stuff stinks. Who takes this stuff? He's like, it works. I'm telling you, it smells, and that's why it works.
Reminiscing on nutrition, how it's changed. I love this conversation, how it's changed so much. So how about what is one thing that you could look back on back in the day that maybe today you go, wow, this is completely different than what I thought it was, whether it was good or bad. Is there anything that you remember that,
Well, I think the biggest change, and certainly it affected my personal and professional life, was we went from, not me personally, but the science, I'll call it the science category. We'll call it the large category of sports medicine, sports science. Um, they were very much anti-supplement. It was let's say we're going back to the 1980s, even 1990s, exceedingly anti-supplement, and that even bled into the early 2000s. And it was to the extent that it was very ideologic, which is strange because these are supposedly science societies, but it was highly ideologic. And let me tell you sort of funny personal story of how ideologic it was. M- Me and my good friend Jeff Stout, he's a professor at University of Central Florida. We applied to give a talk at the American College of Sports Medicine, and this was, I want to say, either late 90s or early 2000s. And the talk was about supplements. And when we applied, we're like, they're not going to take this. They hate supplements. Um, lo and behold, they're like, sure, give a talk on supplements. We're like, whoa, they actually want us to give a talk. It was the first talk on supplements at American College of Sports Medicine, but it gets kind of funnier even after that. So we're looking at the PowerPoint slides. I'm like, this is like the most boring ass talk ever. I mean, this is boring shit, but because we figured, we can't really talk about anything fun and exciting. Let's just give them the facts. It was almost like, and I hate these kinds of talks. It was like a bullet point talk. And this is fact number one. It's like, oh my God, I'm boring myself. Um, so we give a talk, standing room only. This is what's funny. We give a talk. Dr. Stout talks about the history of supplements going back to like the ancient Greeks and Romans. I talk about like 5 supplements, like, I mean, like vitamin C, creatine, protein. I'm like, wow, this is really exciting. So at the end, we're done. Okay. And immediately the crowd was hostile. I mean, hostile. They immediately got up. And I remember this one professor, I think it was from one of the Dakotas. He said, I can't believe ACSM let you give a talk. This is a bunch of bullshit. You guys are snake oil salesmen. It was like, whoa, I was like, whoa, this is nuts. And it was like one after the other. It's like, this is bullshit. This sucks. Why are you guys even talking here? And I'm like, first I was kind of mad. I was like, what's wrong with these people? Then I started, you know what? I kind of like this because it actually, it touched the nerve. Okay. But then later on during the attack session, we realized that actually half the audience loved us. But here's the funny part, Doc. It was the half that looked like bodybuilders. So there were actually
Oh,
bodybuilders in the
wow.
crowd. Yes.
Wow.
And I remember this one guy stands up and he's like, you know what? He points to another scientist. He said, because this one scientist was just going off criticizing. It's like, I mean, it was a boring talk. I mean, you're nitpicking what literally is a boring talk. And his bodybuilder points to the scientist and he says, I can tell you don't take creatine. So I was like, oh shit. He was clearly making fun of his size
Yeah.
because
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so
Oh, that's-
and so the bodybuilder walks up to the mic because the microphone was in the middle aisle, and so the scientist was there. Bodybuilder walks up, and they are nose to nose. I'm like, I look at Jeff Stout. I'm like, is there going to be a fight at this conference in our talk? And so I was like, please don't punch, please don't, because it would be like 2 hits. One, the bodybuilder would hit him, and he'd hit the ground. I mean, that's it. It's like 2 hits. Eventually one of our good friends now, he was in the very back of the hallway, like there was like 300 people in there, and he stood up and he just yelled, he's like, everybody just shut up, let these guys answer questions, stop, basically stop harassing us. And so it kind of brought the temperature down. But still it here's what it showed that there's this sort of dichotomy of people who thought supplements were worthy and supplements were a waste. And this is in a sports science conference, which means, okay, wow, people are really ideologic about this. I mean, to me, it's like, if a supplement works, take it. If it doesn't work, I don't give a shit. Don't take it. But a lot of these people were like, supplements are bullshit. Okay, but it gets better. It gets better. Okay. So myself and Jeff Stout, we end up, we go to a cocktail party, and I hate parties, but we're like, hey, let's get a drink. What the hell? So we go to this cocktail party, and the president of the organization walks up to us and says, gentlemen, if you want to have a career, I would suggest you don't do any research in supplements. And at first I'm like, is there earwax? Did I have earwax in there? What the hell? Did she say don't do research? Yeah, we were both so flabbergasted by the comment. It was like, afterwards we're like, wait, did she say don't do research in supplements? Yes, she said that. So imagine a scientist. It was so crazy. Imagine a scientist coming up to young scientists, because she was established, and saying, if you want to have a career, don't do research on supplements. I was like, whoa, okay. Okay, this is not a good organization. And the irony is that right after that, both Dr. Jeff Stout and I, we left academia and we worked in industry for several years. So not only did we ignore it, we're like, we're going to go all the way over to the dark side and work in the industry. But I actually had my own personal reason for wanting to work in the industry. And if there are scientists who are going to be listening to this, I think they should take heed. My reason for going into the industry was I wanted to know how non-science people, I want to know how they think. Because at the end of the day, as a scientist, you are dependent on industry for funding. And you want to learn, okay, how do these guys think? How do they view research? What are the things they want to know when they fund a study? They want pragmatic outcomes, and scientists are like, hey, let's just study everything. Well, no, let's not study everything. Let's study things that might matter to the consumer. And so once you learn how people in the industry think, it's easier for scientists when you approach, let's say, someone for funding. I know how you guys think because I worked on that side of the industry. Whereas a lot of scientists have never worked in the industry. So they think this is the most amazing thing or most flabbergasting thing. They think they have endless money, like all these companies just are rolling in the dough. It's like, no, they are really careful about how they spend money, and that if there's not a marketing if there's not a marketing angle to spending money for science, it's really not worthwhile. So in a way, you have to think as a marketing person, it's like, if I do a study for you, what structure function claims can you possibly make based on the data? I guarantee you most scientists never think that way, but that's how I think. It's like, okay, well, I've designed enough studies that could probably figure out what would be the best study designs that might show, let's say, how creatine works or how protein works. So, it's interesting that the year 2000, when we got all that shit for, giving a talk at a sports medicine conference, to now fast forward 2.5 decades, and there are PhD programs that do sports nutrition almost exclusively. Students love sports nutrition. And when I tell them, I say, do you realize before the year 2000, people would laugh at you if you said, oh, I want to study sports supplements and nutrition. They would like, that's stupid. Now it's the cool thing. So
Yeah.
literally in 2.5 decades, it is the cool thing to study, which, it's like, hey, that's pretty cool. I mean, it sucks that I got the arrows, initially. But hey, you know what? Like you said earlier, I'm Lewis and Clark.
Right.
You're going to get arrows. But at the end of the day, you, whatever, reach the Oregon Trail and you see the Pacific Ocean or something. So that's how I view it.
You definitely paved the way. Let me switch gears for a moment because I'm gonna narrow this down to, because our listeners are quite curious and viewers. If now I don't know if this is a fair question, but if every American was to take just one supplement for the next 10 years or so, not for athletic performance, but for overall health, brain function and healthy aging, would it still be creatine?
Yeah,
And if
it's
so, why or why not?
That's a great question. Great question. Because let's face it, most people take supplements who take it are not trying to run faster or lift more weights. They're doing it for general health. And the easy answer is creatine because it does so many things. The second answer would be omega-3 fatty acids. Um, I think those, when you're looking purely general population health, creatine, omega-3 fatty acids, and you know what? I actually think supplemental protein helps because most people don't consume as much protein as they think, and it could be in the form of whey. It could be, I mean, even non-dairy based protein is fine. But I think those three would be great. Creatine, omega-3 fats, and protein. Now, I have friends who don't eat any fish, which is like, I love fish. And I eat a lot. I probably go to a Japanese restaurant 2 or 3 times a week. So I actually don't even take fish oil. I get a lot of omega-3 fats from fish, but it's hard to not put creatine in that list. It really is.
What fish is high in omega
Well, I
3s
eat
that you would eat?
I eat mostly, I like salmon belly, eel. There's some other fish I like, but those are the main ones. I sometimes like tuna. Tuna's kind of weird though. Sometimes it tastes good, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
But, but those are the main ones I consume.
And why? I mean, I hear so much about creatine now. Well, in the
Mhm.
last couple of years, I should say, compared to when since the '80s. But why is there still all that negative stuff about it? And you got influencers promoting it, and that always is kind of sketchy. But what do you think as to why? Without even though there's so much research on it.
Yeah, it's strange. There's a physician on Instagram. Um, and she says, creatine will kill you. I'm like, not harm you, kill you. I'm like,
Really?
it'll kill you? Like, kill you. I mean, that's how bad it is. So about 4 or 5 years ago, you know, I was like, I've been taking it since Bill Clinton was president. I'm still
Yeah.
alive. Uh, so, uh, one of my good friends, he's at the University of Regina up in Saskatchewan, and Darren Kandow. He said, you know what? We keep getting the same questions about creatine for the last bazillion years. Why don't we publish? We'll write a paper and call it Common Questions and Misconceptions About Creatine. So we just basically saying, does creatine, hurt your kidneys? Does creatine cause cramps? So we basically went through what are the 10 most common questions people ask. We wrote the paper, we got it published, and people still talk shit about creatine. So we decided, hey, let's do a part 2 because apparently part 1 wasn't good enough. So we did a part 2. And still people talk shit about creatine. So I'm like, you know what? I don't know if we need a part 3 because, people don't believe anything. Apparently they have a preconceived notion as to what creatine, about how bad creatine is. So if you have physicians saying it'll kill you, I'm like, how do you, and what's funny, I went on her feed where she was saying it'll kill you. And I said, if it actually does kill you, I would publish that data because that's kind of interesting. And she, of course, said, well, no, I'm not. This is me working with my patients. I'm not going to publish any of this. So someone said, oh, so the reference is Trust Me, Bro. That's your reference. Okay. Yeah. So apparently Trust Me, Bro is the reference for a lot of this stuff. It's like, oh, it's just my personal experience. Someone died and they had a bottle of creatine next to them. So of course it
Damn.
was creatine. Yeah. So it's just strange. It's so strange. And I tell a lot of my students, I'm like, okay, you guys are going to be up and coming when you get into this field. Just realize there's more data on creatine than every food that you consume. Pick a food,
Nice.
milk, beef, chicken. There's
Yeah.
more data on creatine. And yet people will like ketchup. I always tell people, where's the ketchup data? Huh? Where's the ketchup data? You put ketchup on your hamburger. Where's the ketchup data? There's no ketchup data. But people are like, oh, I love ketchup. If you if you really believe in science, you should understand that there's so much creatine data that to be skeptical of it. I mean, it's always good to be skeptical, but after after the first 100 studies, it's like, okay, well, it's safe and it seems to work. Maybe we need 100 more studies. Okay, still safe, still works. 100 more studies. Okay, still safe, still works. Now, when we get into the cognitive aspects, this is where it gets a little tricky because apparently it's much more difficult to get creatine into your brain than it is into your muscle. And this is sort of the next scientific debate. In fact, myself and my colleagues were writing a paper on this. We know how 5 grams gets into muscle. Take 5 grams a day in like 4 to 6 weeks, you can saturate muscle. Apparently your brain, you just need a much higher dose. Some people say 10 grams. Some people even say 20 grams. And I'll be honest with you, I ain't taking 20 grams. No way. 20 grams. I'm like, holy, I'll be swallowing pills like all morning. So to me, this is where it gets really interesting, the cognitive part. Now, is it true that some may overhype the cognitive part? Possibly, but this is how I would respond to that. What's the downside? There's no downside. Take creatine. There's no downside. It'll help skeletal muscle. It might help the brain. If it doesn't, okay, it's neutral, as a neutral effect. You could take other brain-related supplements. You could take, fish oil is probably your best bet. But I forgot what your original question was. I just started talking.
No, that's all.
Yeah,
No,
you're
I do the
covering it
same
all.
thing. It's great. We all do that at
Right.
this age. No,
Yes.
but no, yeah, I was actually just curious about the fact that, with the advent of social media like TikTok and Instagram, that you got your people that want clicks. The clickbait is let's go against the grain. So you got some imbecile medical doctor or doctor saying it could kill you. Now that people are going to want to. What do you mean? And there it is. They get. I remember several years ago, a physical therapist. This might have been 10 years ago. A physical therapist published a paper that said that ice on an injury does not work. It actually makes you worse. I'm thinking, This is like the most age-old instant treatment that you can apply at home, ice, to cool down or calm down a trauma. He was looking for attention, and that's how I apply some of these principles. But do you feel that TikTok and or social media, Instagram has made it better for those creatine users or believers than
I
not?
think on the net effect is positive, I think, because there are enough people out there that are touting the virtues of taking creatine. Um, However, in general, if you take the supplement category in general, it seems that there are people who just get on TikTok or Instagram and all they do is bitch and moan. They bitch and moan about, okay, there's not enough data about omega-3 fatty acids to do X, Y, and Z. And I look at this, all of these supplements, I look at them in a very pragmatic way. I divide scientists into purists and pragmatists. Purists, they need to have, 100 randomized controlled trials. It's got to be all well done. Whereas a pragmatist, I'll look at the data. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then I'll look at what people do in real life. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool too. And they seem to match. So I approach it as, could it help you? Yeah. Will it hurt you? No. Well, then do it. I mean, when you think about it, what's the harm?
Simple.
It's either helps or has a neutral effect. And I always say there's only really one quote supplement that can either help you a lot or harm you, and that's caffeine, because you could overdose on caffeine. But we love caffeine, and no one ever says, "Oh, by the way, caffeine could hurt you." But we're not dumb enough to overdose on it. So all the other supplements, I mean, what are you gonna overdose on creatine? How the hell is that gonna happen? Beta alanine? I don't think so. Beetroot juice, citrulline. You're not gonna overdose on it. So uh, if it helps or has a neutral effect, use it. And again, that's me talking to people who are trying to perform better, whether it's strength or power or endurance. Um, for people who just want general health, the proteins, the creatines, the omega-3 fats, don't eat a lot of junk, move your body a little bit, and you'll be good.
Hey, you mentioned earlier, you take creatine in the capsule form or
Yes.
pill form. Uh, is that preferred, or because there is the powder that I hear about all the time?
I only take it in the capsule form because that's just what I'm used to. Yeah, like I don't make shakes at home. Like a lot of people will put creatine in shakes. I actually just drink ready to drink protein shakes. So people say, well, why don't you just add creatine to it? I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I sit on my backyard deck and I stare at the water and I drink my protein. I'm not going to put more creatine in it. That ruins the fun. I just want to open it and drink it. I don't want to, adding another behavior that I just don't want to do. So I take my pills in the morning and then I go my merry way.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering because, I know there's those that just throw it in a glass of water in the
Oh,
early
uh,
morning or something like that. I know it's a
yeah, I
little
don't do that.
rough. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't do that. Mm.
Quick question on the fact that creatine moved from helping with muscle to brain or cognitive function. Do you see anything in the future that creatine would be popularized for?
Well, I think we still haven't figured out what it does for the brain. I mean, I think what we do know is that under conditions of severe stress, so let's say you're sleep deprived, um, or you're under some sort of metabolic stress, creatine can help brain function. And I tell students all the time. I mean, you guys, you might study a lot, you don't get enough sleep, you're under a lot of stress. Creatine might be the most beneficial under those circumstances. So I think I was, and it's funny in the exercise physiology world, we've been studying everything below the neck for the last half century or century, right? We know what goes on below the neck, skeletal muscle, heart muscle, etc. We haven't really done above the neck because the brain is super complicated and you can't really biopsy someone's brain. Hey, can I take some brain tissue? Yeah, sure. Drill a hole. Yeah, can't do that. So we're left with looking at stuff very indirectly, whereas before, with muscle, we could take a biopsy and see what's going on. So with brain stuff, okay, we do these measures, looking at attention or memory or whatnot. These are all indirect measures. But again, as a pragmatist, that's really all that matters. I mean, I don't need to biopsy someone's brain to see if something helps my brain. So we're left with these very indirect measures, which at the end of the day is what matters to consumers. They want to know, does it help my memory? Does it make me feel less tired? Things like that.
Good one. Go ahead, Terry. I know you were going to ask some.
No, I want switching gears because you mentioned it earlier into protein. And we hear about the dogma of protein, high protein for muscle, low protein for longevity, plant-based versus animal-based. What's the big nutrition debate that you've taken your people on this protein journey?
This is protein's such a funny debate topic. Because scientists argue about it. There's this sort of internal debate among scientists. It kind of goes like this. Okay, we know the RDA is stupid, 0.8 grams per kilo. Yeah, that's stupid. No one follows that. But there are a group of scientists that say once you get above 1.6 grams per kilo, anything above that is a waste. I'll paraphrase it: a waste. It's useless. Whatever. You don't need to do that. Okay, 1.6 grams per kilo. I think most people who work out hit that probably easily. I think. But the question you have to ask is, so what happens at 1.7 grams per kilo? What's happening? Because I recommend actually much higher. I recommend as high as 2.2 grams per kilo, and even higher. I have people doing 3 grams per kilo. So the question is, okay, 1.6 grams per kilo. Why is there that cutoff? Why is there that ceiling? And the idea is always, well, it's a waste. Or you don't need protein. Okay. Now, again, got to think of this pragmatically. Does your body actually waste protein? The answer is no, it doesn't. So let's say you eat a gob of protein. What does your body do with it? Well, whatever is needed for, muscle protein turnover, organ protein turnover, it uses that. Anything, quote, in excess that it doesn't use, what does it do? It oxidizes it as fuel. Your body, think about it. If your body wasted protein, we'd be dead as a species. We'd be dead. So imagine you live in Germany. This is like 20,000 years ago. You're in Germany. It's cold as crap. It's not like you're picking mangoes off trees. You're like, oh man, I need food. So you're like, well, hey, if all 10 of us chase that deer, eventually one of us could kill it and we get to eat. So you chase the deer, you kill it, you eat it. You probably eat it raw because you're so damn hungry. Think about this. Okay. Now that you've hit 1.6 grams per kilo, stop eating. Who the hell thinks like that? You're like dying. You haven't eaten in 2 days. You're going to eat as much freaking deer meat as possible. Why? Because your body knows what to do with it. So from an evolutionary standpoint, it doesn't make sense to have this upper limit when in fact humans historically probably it was either feast or famine, feast or famine, feast or famine. So once you had food, you're like, I got to eat because I don't know if I'm going to get food again. So that's my sort of historical evolutionary perspective. The other one is kind of it's a criticism of how people view food, I guess. So if you look at the 3 major food groups, and if you want to count alcohol as a food group, but let's not. So carbs, fat, protein, right? Carbs, fat, protein, carbs, fat, protein. Protein is the only macronutrient where scientists are hell bent on putting a ceiling on it. It's like, stop at 1.6 grams per kilo. Well, but they don't do that with carbs. They don't do that with fat, only with protein. And I'm thinking, out of those 3, you're probably better off eating a lot of protein and not as much carbs or fat. Why? Because if you want to get fat, eat a lot of carbs and fat. It's very hard, not impossible, but it's very hard to put on body fat by eating a lot of protein. How do I know? Because I did these studies in the 20 teens. In fact, I don't know if you're familiar with some of that data I did, the studies we did. We did a series of studies from 2014 to 2018. And it was to answer this simple question. The question was, what if I just ate a lot of protein? Just a lot. So the first study we did, okay, I got a bunch of people. I'm like, okay, the only thing I want is that you guys have to be people who lift weights, but I don't want you to change how you train for the next 2 months. They're like, okay, and I get free protein? Yeah, you get all the free protein you want. So this is how we challenged them. And I bet you guys can't do it. I tried it. I couldn't do it. I want you to consume 2 grams per pound. And they're thinking, 2 grams per pound? Okay, that's not that much. And then they start doing the math. They're like, holy crap. So the guys who weigh 200 pounds are consuming 400 grams. Even girls who weigh 100 pounds, 200 grams is a lot. So I said, I know this sucks. We basically just gave here's all the protein powder. You don't have to buy it, just drink protein. We had like 25% of people drop out. They're like, I can't do this. I can't eat. I tried it. I'm like, I can't do it. I felt sick just eating all that protein. But enough people finished it. Okay. Imagine that 2 grams per pound. 2 grams per pound. And what did we find? We found that they didn't gain fat or weight or nothing. Like basically nothing. And it was like, huh, that's kind of weird. They didn't gain any fat. They didn't really gain any weight. This is really interesting. What they did, here's what's funny, what they did complain about. There was this, my favorite subject, she's tiny. She's like 95 pounds, but she followed like the protocol to a T. And she said, you know what? I was hot constantly, just hot, and you're living in Florida. It's like you're hot to begin with. Now you're just hot. And she said, the only way I could fall asleep is if I laid on top of my sheets, turned the fan on and laid like an X. Yeah, X. Yeah, X. Yeah. Because she said she was constantly hot because of the thermic effect of protein. So people are like, this is bullshit. If you're eating that many more calories, you got to be gaining weight, some sort of weight. You got to be gaining fat. I'm like, you don't seem to be gaining fat. So we decided, okay, how about this? We'll try this again. We're going to do it different. We're going to make it 3.4 grams per kilo. Okay. So you do the math, you're like, holy shit, that's still a lot of protein, but it's still less than 4.4 grams per kilo. So we did that. Still super high protein diet, but we did other change. We said, we want all of you to follow a bodybuilding type program. So it was something like, back buys, chest, shoulder, tries, legs, the typical splits people do for bodybuilding. Again, 2 months, and we found that the high protein group and quote, the lower protein group gained the same amount of lean mass. But think about this. High protein group was 3.4 grams per kilo. The low, and it's not really low, but the low protein group was about 2 grams per kilo. So some people would say you're really comparing super high to high. Okay, they gained the same amount of lean mass. And they're like, see, I told you there's a limit, but this is the more interesting part. The group that ate more protein lost more fat mass. So if the goal is just muscle mass, it seems like 1 gram per pound or 2.2 grams per kilo is enough. So then the next pragmatic question I ask is, well, what's the downside to consuming more? And the answer is there is no downside because you could be losing body fat. So all just by changing their training, eating more protein, they lost fat and gained lean mass. Now, the naysayers online were like, oh, well, that can't be healthy for you. Again, there's no way that's good for you, all that protein. So we're like, okay, we followed people for a year. Okay. Then we followed people for 2 years. Imagine this. We followed people for a year and then 2 years. Nothing. Kidneys fine, liver fine, everything fine. Blood lipids are fine. We followed like 5 or 6 bodybuilders for like 2 years. Everything is fine. Cholesterol's fine. Liver's fine. Kidneys fine. But here's the funny part. And it harkens back to your original question about why people are so weird about creatine and supplements in general, is that even with 2 years worth of data, people still don't believe it. They're like, well, what if they did this for like 10 years? I'm like, first of all, there's no one's going to do a 10-year study. What if they did it for 20 years? I'm like, well, yeah, I don't know. What if they do it for 20 years? Or you can just look at people who eat a lot of protein, and these are usually people who are athletic, and just look at them. I mean, people who work out who tend to eat more protein probably tend to live longer. But again, it gets kind of fuzzy. It's like, well, why they live longer? Is it because they work out? Well, yeah, that's part of it. Is it because they're not fat? Yeah, that's another part of it. Is it because they eat protein? Well, this is where it's sort of, let's segue into aging and sarcopenia. Okay. So sarcopenia, age-related loss of muscle mass. Protein plays an incredible role there. Protein and resistance training, protein and exercise. As you get older, you're less sensitive to protein. And this is where you actually might have to increase your protein intake just because you're an old bastard, right? You and I are old, right? We need more protein. And it's like, so I got to eat a lot of fish, drink a lot of shakes because I know, God dang it, I ain't 28 years old anymore. So when I was 28, I could work out, I could recover next day and, do all sorts of crazy stuff. Now I can't do crazy stuff anymore. So So that's the answer to whatever your question was.
That was good. No, it's fascinating because I remember hearing back in the, weight training, bodybuilding, resistance training days that too much protein, whatever that looks like, turns to fat,
Yeah.
period. So I think one of the coolest things that you could ever do is prepare for a bodybuilding competition because you realize how your body reacts to food.
Yes.
And that's really one of the coolest things that we were able to witness, to get lean as possible with the most muscularity and see how your body responds to that and water and salt and all that cool stuff.
Yeah, and I think the purists, the science purists, often I don't know if they ignore it, but they tend to dismiss what people do. And I remember going back to when learning from my uncle, who was, he taught me karate, but he was a bodybuilder. He did both. He said I asked him, so how do you get lean for a contest? And when you think about it, it's like, well, that's pretty simple, and that's what people do. He goes, well, when I want to cut, I eat less rice. When I want to bulk, I eat more protein. I was like, oh, that's kind of what people do now. I mean, because I don't know if you know my background. I'm Filipino. I was born in the Philippines, but grew up in the United States. So we eat rice, like we could literally eat rice every meal. So it's like rice, meat, veggie, rice, meat, veggie. So he's like, I just eat less rice. And if I eat less rice, I get cut. I was like, wow, that's pretty simple. And then if I want to get bulked, I'll just eat more of everything, but I'll make sure I'll eat a lot more fish and pork and beef. So what he was doing in the 70s is like, okay, that's kind of what people do now, the whole protein thing. So, cut carbs to get ripped, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of funny.
Go
You
ahead,
know,
sorry.
we see these, carnivore diet, the vegan diet, the vegetarian diet. What's your talk on protein, whether it's plant-based or animal-based?
That is a fun question. Uh, First, let's look at overall protein intake. Because I get this question from vegans, I tell them if your overall protein intake is high, quality probably doesn't matter as much. If your overall protein intake is low, and when I say low, let's say it's less than 1.5 grams per kilo, quality probably matters a lot more. But if you're eating just a lot of food and you're on a vegan diet, you're probably getting enough protein. The problem is you're probably getting too much carbs and fat just because you're eating bulks of food. But you can get adequate protein on a vegan diet. I think the best way to do that is to consume shakes. One of my colleagues at the university, she's a vegan. I always make fun of her because she has the stinkiest food ever. And her diet is like, it's all processed stuff. And here's the thing, she knows if she doesn't eat the way she eats, she'll get fat. So she's cognizant of the calories. So she'll eat like these vegan burgers and shakes that are, all vegan friendly or whatever the hell. It's like, God, it must suck being a vegan because it's just you're not having fun in life. Um the carnivore thing, this is what's funny. The few people I know that follow the carnivore diet are all ripped. Not a fat one in sight. Um, so that's a big plus. You're like, wow, they're all ripped. Yeah, they're all ripped. Why are they ripped? Well, they're ripped because they don't eat carbs and fat, which is the easiest way to get fat. If all I ate was pork, chicken, fish, bacon, what's left? Steaks. I don't know. You're kind of limited.
Yeah.
Eggs, maybe. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Guess what? I'm not eating rice. I'm not eating bread. I'm not eating butter on bread. I'm not eating fried rice. So it's like, yeah, I'd probably lose 20 pounds just because one, I'm eating only meat and remember, it's almost impossible to get fat just eating protein. So the carnivore diet, mostly protein, um, it's hard to get fat on it. So, I don't tell people not to do it. It's like, you know what, do it. If you are trying to, I know there's a dispute about whether you need all these carbs for performance. And I think if you want to train optimally, there's a certain amount of carbohydrate. It doesn't have to be high, but there's a certain amount of carbohydrate that you should consume. Zero carbohydrate, I would not recommend for people performing um, in a sport. If you want to get on a podium, I don't think just eating steak all day will do that for you. So, but to me, the best diet is the one you'll follow. I mean, if the carnivore works for you, do it. If ketogenic works for you, do it. If the vegan diet works for you, do it. I'm just a big fan of a mixed diet, just because part of the fun of being alive is eating good food. I mean, if all I'm eating is freaking bacon and steak, I mean, I love bacon and steak, but there's going to be a while where, you know what? Can I just have a piece of apple pie? How about that? I want apple pie today, or, or creme brulee or some other piece of junk food that, makes my tongue happy.
I love that. Yeah. All right. What's the 5 non-negotiable rules for building a strong body and brain that will last you into your 80s?
5 non-negotiable rules. Well, the first non-negotiable is you have to exercise. Now, it gets a little crazy because people I watch on Instagram, people like, this is the best exercise. Don't do zone 2, do high intensity interval training. Or everyone must lift weights, and if you lift weights, you must lift heavy weights. And I'm thinking, okay, I think, again, I'm a pragmatist. To me, the best exercise is what you can adhere to. I my personal story. I go to the gym and lift weights, not because I want to. In fact, I hate it. I hate it. I'm like, ah, shit, I better lift because it's good for me and all that bullshit. So I go lift. But my bread and butter exercise is actually paddling. I love to paddle. I live in South Florida. We live on the water, so I could just drop my board and paddle. I also belong to a group that does outrigger canoe paddling. So that's my bread and butter. However, I also know that paddling is probably not the best sport for promoting bone mineral density and things like that. I think it's important when you go lift to learn how to, now we're sort of sounding technical, to learn how to recruit high threshold motor units, right? Your body, your brain, you're basically teaching your brain, okay, I need to always know how to recruit high threshold motor units. If my car breaks down, I'm in the middle of nowhere, I need to figure out how to push this car. And unless I've taught my brain how to do that, you're kind of shit out of luck. So exercise. And I never argue with people. Do HIIT, do zone 2, do whatever you want, but do something. That's number 1. Number 2, and some people say, is it diet or is it sleep? Now, in a way, they're kind of interrelated, but exercise clearly is number 1. There's not even a close number 2, but number 2 and 3 would be sleep and or diet. You can put it in whatever order you want. Now, sleep, most people probably actually don't sleep that well, maybe because of the stress of the job and whatnot. But getting enough sleep is probably one of the best recovery tools you can have. Inadequate sleep seems to make it easier for you to gain fat mass. So sleep and diet go hand in hand. Now, you'd think sleep is easier than diet, but apparently for a lot of people, sleep is not easy. So, there's that. The diet part, again, this is where people argue about diet all the time. I think if you just limit the amount of junk you consume, eat mostly whole food, I think you're good. That's it. In fact, people say, should I do Okinawan diet or Mediterranean or this or that? I'm like, just don't eat a lot of junk. I mean, I still have ice cream on occasion. In fact, sometimes I'm like, God, I could eat a whole pizza pie. So I'll get on DoorDash. I think I'm going to eat a pizza today. So I eat a whole pizza, just because sometimes I'm craving it. But I usually don't. I mean, most of my diet is actually just pretty good food. I eat like most Asians, rice, meat, vegetables. That's my, rice, meat, veggies, rice, meat, veggies. So exercise, sleep, diet. Now, 4 and 5, this is where it gets, what's interesting about 4 and 5 is they're not really, they're more, I guess, cultural things like yes, we can make 4, having a group, having close family and friends, having social connections, I think is probably one of the most undervalued things, particularly since we live in such a large country, where it's not like we live in Luxembourg and everyone like knows what everyone's doing. I mean, Luxembourg's like the size of like my car. So we live in this gigantic country where it's hard for people to know. People in Luxembourg can be like, "Who is this MF for talking bad about Luxembourg?" So, so at least I didn't say Moldova. That's like another tiny country out there. So, and I know some Moldovans. So yeah, that social connection, I think that comes from family, and also having a sort of a peer group that you that you think like. And you enjoy each other's company. For me, a lot of it is my science friends and whatnot. And then I think the 5th thing, and this is where so we got exercise, we got sleep, we got diet, we got this peer group, and the 5th thing, which is kind of related to 1, 2, and 3, don't be fat. You can't be fat. And the reason I bring that up is I have friends who've been bodybuilding forever. I mean, since they were 20s. And I tell them on occasion that, have you ever seen a muscular person live long? The answer is no, you really don't. Now, people are like, hey, Jack LaLanne lived to 94. Jack LaLanne was small. He was lean, he lifted, he exercised a lot, but he was actually small. Large people, it doesn't matter if they're fat or muscular, in general, don't live long. Now, the problem is this is in conflict. A lot of guys want to be large and muscular when they're young. And as you get older, it's like, that actually probably won't contribute to healthy aging. Now, I have friends who argue with me about this all the time. They're like, bro, I'm 210 pounds ripped. I'm like, yeah, I bet you don't see 210-pound ripped people living long. I mean, and it's okay to be 210 and ripped or 220, whatever, pick the weight. But they tend not to live long. Look at basketball players. All that mass, they don't. It's rare to see an old basketball player. It's rare. You don't see sumo wrestlers living long. You don't see outside of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's see. Do any of these old time the Dave Drapers, the Lou Ferrignos, the Franco Columbo? I mean, these guys are not going to live that long. They're not going to live into their 80s. So body weight. I think people dismiss it a little bit, but body weight is a huge issue. And I don't know how tall you guys are, but apparently if you're male and you're 5'8" or shorter, you live long. Yes, I'm 5'8".
Oh, great. Well, I'm going to hear that one now.
Yeah, if you're taller than 5'8", how tall are you?
5'5".
Yeah, I'm 6 foot.
Yeah, well, apparently the 5'5"ers are going to beat out the 6-footers. So
yeah. but until then, we can rest our beer on his head. So it's
Hey, there's advantages to being tall, and that's one of them.
Yes, it is.
There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, I think those 5 things. I mean, and what's funny is that as you get older, as I get older, I start to think more in terms of that than, okay, I need to do this faster or I need to do this better. It's like, how about I just need to do this?
Yeah.
And not be injured. So
Yeah.
It's crazy.
All right. So now we are nearing the end of the show, but our favorite part of the show, or one of our favorite parts, is the rapid fire questions. I got 5 of them for you. Now, when I say rapid fire, that means short answers so we can get through them in the reasonable period of time we have left.
So it has to be a rapid fire answer.
That's true. Are you ready for question number 1?
Let's go.
All right, here we go. When you helped people, or when you helped build that International Society of Sports Nutrition, did you ever imagine that one day social media influencers would have a larger audience than many scientists? Is that kind of exciting, or is it terrifying, or both?
No, I think, you know what? Actually, I love social media despite the good and the bad. I think overall it's a good thing, especially for an academic society, because it helps get the information out there. So I'm a big fan of social media.
Nice to hear. Question number 2. You've spent years battling this protein myth. Now, if I gave you a time machine and one billboard in Times Square, and let's go back to 1995, what single sentence about protein would you put on that billboard that would have saved decades of confusion?
I would have said protein will help you keep your muscle mass, which will help you live longer, prevent sarcopenia.
Nice. All right. Question number 3, Dr. Antonio. What's an opinion you've held in sports medicine that got you most criticism initially, but eventually turned out to be largely correct?
That's an easy one. My overall position that sports supplements are worthwhile and they work.
Question number 4. What's one nutrition rule people should stop obsessing over?
Stop obsessing over, drinking X number of glasses of water a day. It's a big waste of time. Stop carrying those stupid jugs on airplanes. God damn it. There's just ask the flight attendant for a bottle of water.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. That's great. And finally, you're doing so well so far. Question number 5. Here we go. You've spent a lifetime helping people build stronger bodies. At this stage of your life, what do you think is more important, adding years to your life or adding life to your years, and how do you personally try to do both?
Yeah, health span versus lifespan. I actually don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think health span's more important. You don't want to be a 90-year-old cripple. You'd rather be someone who's 85 and fully functional. So if given the choice, I'll take health span.
Nice. Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show and being so animated and informative. And you have definitely made a mark in the world of nutrition. Thank you for being part
You're
of it.
welcome. I appreciate being on the show, and hopefully, people can figure out what I would say, what have said after. I sort of go on these tangents, and
I love it.
I sometimes don't even know what
Oh,
you
no.
guys asked. I'm like, I'll
Ah,
just
that's
Love it,
great
love
because when you're a pioneer, you tell a lot of stories, right?
yeah. My students are like, oh, he's going to tell another story.
Here it comes. Yeah. Thanks again, Dr. Antonio.
Thank you.
You bet.